Hi everyone. You won't be able to hear the episode in the background of the podcast. So in order to sync up the show with what we're saying, you should pause now and hit play as soon as the main titles start. Hi, this is Tony Graffia, writer, executive producer of Outlander. I'm here with Matthew B. Roberts.
Hello, everyone.
And we're here today to watch episode 313, our finale called Eye of the Storm. And we are going to celebrate the final podcast of the season today. We're switching it up a little. We've got some bubbly champagne here that is a gift from our agents. So thank you very much. Matthew is opening it right now.
All right.
Here
Hold
we go.
on. You
Give him a
move
minute.
over here.
Everyone
That's
out of the way.
Oh, there we go. And
Nice. Oh my God, it's spilling all over.
it's not spilling all over. A few drops fell out. It's not bad.
It looks good though.
It does. It wasn't bad.
We've been waiting for this.
I
We've
think
been waiting for
because-
this one.
I think because we had to wait so long to start the podcast, it got a little warm, so that's what happened.
Pour it.
So that's
Pour
for you.
it, baby. There you go. Thank
that
you.
one.
Thank you very much.
And we'll cheers this.
Thank you.
All right. So the
Ooh.
last podcast of season 3.
Cheers.
Cheers. Congratulations.
Congratulations to you, Matthew, especially on this episode, as this is your very first directing. Matthew Roberts directed this, and there's your credit.
There it is.
We're super proud of you.
We started this episode a little differently than normal. One started with voiceover. We don't usually do that.
Right.
The title card is incorporated into the story, into the
Yeah.
beginning.
We planned pretty much from the beginning. We wrote this one together, Matt and I, and we knew we wanted from the very beginning to start with this image of Claire drowning, and especially the provocative words of opening with "I was dead," and then of course we catch up with it later and we know what's going on. But we really like to open it up with this kind of surrealistic and poetic image,
And a way of catching up with the story.
and then of course we cut to where we left off was Claire was on her way to Rose Hall to save young Ian after Jamie was apprehended by Captain Leonard.
Yeah. This is actually filmed on an estate in South Africa, and a beautiful estate overlooking Cape Town. It was unbelievable. That had been there for hundreds of years. It originated when Cape Town was first founded, so we were lucky enough to be able to go there and see some very historic places. So
Yeah, it's really pretty there and really spooky. It looks very spooky on this night. I believe it was your idea to have those slaves walking down the street.
walking down the
Well, not
the
street,
path.
the
Yeah.
path.
Yeah.
The idea is that they were going to the voodoo ceremony that
Yeah.
happens later.
That happens later.
And they're chanting because they're Gaelis' slaves and they're on their way to their one of their sacred rituals on one of their holidays,
Yeah.
religious holidays.
So we had this was back in I have that sign in my office actually. We must have we went round and round about adding this in or keeping this in or taking it out.
Right. It's basically we had to explain how Jamie eventually gets out and
Yeah.
how he got word to John Gray about his arrest. And
This slave quarters was one of the sets that Gary Steele and his team repurposed from the Black Sails backlot. So and we put Rose. You can see Rose Hall. We put it back in visual effects. We put it back in the distance. So you kind of attach the two places because this was filmed at a completely different place. And this little dog actually had a limp, but I was so concerned that it was hurt, and the owner, see how it limps?
Oh, yeah.
The owner absolutely said that's what it does. It's perfectly healthy.
Huh.
But it acted like it was limping, so I really, it was a method actor dog.
Of course, there's the two dead boys
From the
that were
we-
were
in the
locked
pit.
up with
Yeah,
Ian.
in the pit.
I like how he's just he's just so fearless. He's like his Uncle Jamie. He's never been afraid of her, and he just gives it right back to her. He
Yeah.
just freaks out on her, and I mean, she kind of likes it though. Gayless
Well,
is like, he got some spirit. This kid.
Well, one of the notes to Lotta was to not flinch. And
Yeah.
she did such a great job. She just held her ground. She doesn't move.
Oh,
doesn't
she's
even
amazing.
blink.
And I've been waiting since the witch trial to reunite the two of these ladies because they're awesome together. And they're both such powerful actresses and performers and great characters from the book that I just couldn't wait for their reunion this season.
Yeah, they see each other in episode 12.
Right.
They're both, I think, both shocked but also excited to find out how
Yeah.
this reunion. We had a couple reunions this year.
Yeah, quite a few. And of course, they were friends. Frenemies, maybe a better word.
Yeah, I don't. That's the thing. You mentioned they're friends a few times, and I would never call them that. I wouldn't certainly want Galis as my friend.
Well,
if
she
that's the
saved
case.
Claire's life, though.
She did for her own purpose, though.
Well, that's true, but who cares?
Yeah.
No, they're both wary of each other, and
Yeah.
I think they sort of respect each other or are intrigued by each other. Yeah, but they saved each other's life really back at the witch trial, and so this is a sort of a rematch, more of a rematch than a reunion, I would say.
We filmed this was actually we had a lagoon in South Africa, and this was the port that was built on that lagoon. So it's a practical set. So the water is right there. We had we could put boats in the water there. So now we filmed this at a different time. We filmed this scene was filmed in Scotland.
Before you ever
Before
left,
we left,
for
yes.
South Africa,
Yeah.
right? We had to cherry pick some scenes from this episode that were shot in Scotland before we made the move to South Africa. It's the only scene John Gray is in, right? And
Yeah. David Barry, who I love how he paces. I've kind of talked to him about pacing it up, like taking it slow.
Yeah.
And then basically bringing the hammer down at the
Yeah.
end of the scene. And he does. He kind of draws him into this cordial conversation. I'm going to listen to you, but he already knows what he's going to do, and that's the key to the scene.
Yeah.
And I think Sam does a really nice job here. I think one of the most difficult things for an actor in a performance is when you have zero lines, but you have to act. You have to be present in the scene, and I think he is. I think there's,
It's all about him.
There's two men are having a conversation about this other guy, and he had to be present during
Yeah.
every take. So.
He's like watching a tennis match here.
Yeah.
Jamie is.
He's watching one guy about ready to get hammered. And this is where we
Yeah.
should. Okay, this is where you take control.
Yeah, it was.
And he really does.
It was something where we did, it came out of research again, saying how can we get Jamie free, and came up with, well, the Leonard only has authority on the water, and that was the perfect out, for John Grey to use and get Jamie free. The law's on his side.
And I think that he, throughout the scene, he lets him believe he's a captain, and then when he hits, when he comes down on him, he uses his actual rank as a lieutenant to say, you're above you're above your station right now, so I'm going to put you in your place.
I like this little exchange because that's where he says, we've been indebted to each other so many times. And it's really a call back to your episode, All Debts Paid.
Yeah.
So all debts were paid, but more debts, the debts just keep going back and forth between them because they're always there helping each other. I love this shot because you can see in John Gray's eyes, it's just like every time he sees Jamie, it's like, is this the last time I'm ever going to see you? And they keep popping up in each other's lives, but he cares about him so much.
We debated about letting them touch, but I think it's more poignant if because it wasn't something they did in the time.
Yeah.
That keeping them from and in episode 4 when you demanded they do a handshake and I was totally against it. It's because
it was a hand clasp. It was a double hand clasp. That doesn't count as a shake.
I think it's more poignant when two people can't touch but they want to.
Yeah.
They want to embrace and they can't.
See, I love how Galis is. She's very seductive. I love writing her because I love to try to imagine, her using her wiles, being a time traveler along with Claire, a bond that they share, and that she uses that to sort of try to rope her in because she's got so much passion for her cause, even though she's a naughty girl, but it's all for a reason in her head. And
I think, one of the things about Rose Hall is that we only had one room that was built for us. This is on the stages, Gary.
It's a courtyard, right? It's technically an outdoor courtyard, but it looks kind of like a living room.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We didn't have a lot of places to shoot the scenes, so but you almost want them forced to stay together, so someone can't leave the room, and this is where Claire, it's like, I need to get out of here. She didn't find Ian, and this kind of is where it turns.
Well, they both have an objective here. Claire really wants to find young Ian. Galis wants to know what's Claire's doing there because she's caught on that, like, there's got to be a reason that they keep crossing paths, and she thinks that she thinks of her as kind of an avatar. That's how we talk about it in the writer's room, like they're each other's avatars who are there to stop each other. And
is that what you guys?
Yeah, we've said before that. Like,
I've never said that.
Galis wonders, is Claire her foe that's been sent kind of through time to thwart her efforts about the king? Because after all, Claire's English, right? So even when she first met her, she's like, technically, you're the enemy.
Yeah.
And Claire, of course, came through time accidentally. She's not there for a purpose like Galis is. But Galis is like, you couldn't have just come here by accident.
No.
And then shown up twice in my life.
I agree with that. That's why she is so wary. She's so like, why are you here?
Yeah.
And why do you keep popping into my life?
And this is how Claire's like, I'm not after you. I'm not trying to stop you from doing anything. Yeah. I'm not involved in this whole Scottish king thing. And she uses the pictures to prove to Galis, of course, that she really hasn't even been here for 20 years.
Yeah.
She went back, she had a child, and at this point, and there was a lot of debate about this, like, would Claire show her these pictures and endanger, Brianna? But she's not endangering her in the moment because she has no reason here to think that there's any way that Galis would travel back 200 years through time to harm her daughter. She needs to get out of there and find young Ian. So but Galus, of course, recognizes Brianna because they met in the last finale that we wrote of last season.
Right.
Is where Brianna, of course, meets Galus in 1968.
Those pictures really did come in handy. I'm glad Claire decided to bring them.
Yeah. Yeah, in the book, I believe Claire leaves the room to give some medical attention to a slave in the kitchen, and Galus goes through her coat and finds them.
Yeah.
But of course, Terry had built the secret pockets in the bat dress, and that's where Claire carries them. So, and we didn't have time to do a medical story with the slaves at Rose Hall, which we had to condense a lot of the stuff in the book. This is probably the most dense book in the series, and especially the second half and towards the end. We had to really simplify some things so we could get it all in, and we elected not to do the medical storyline, but we thought it was stronger to have her show the pictures to Galus to prove this rather than Galus surreptitiously finding them.
To deliberately steal it right in front of her too.
Yeah, I love how she tucks it. I love how this is shot because she just tucks it away, and we know, this is where the audience should start worrying. The non-book readers, of course, who don't know what's coming. I'd be very worried about Miss Brianna Randall at this point.
Once again, this is one of those things where, in the book, you can just write another room. You can write something up happening, and you can go to that other room or other spot where practically we can't do those things sometimes. That would mean building another room.
Right.
And decorating and doing all the things that take time, and it's more about time than anything. So that's, people always ask us about the differences, and one of the big differences is that we do have to condense. We have to, take the most poignant moments and show those on screen. I think one of the big moments when we were working out this scene blocking, we wanted to have a really uncomfortable hug because they're they're from the 20th century, so they would, and it was really. Lotta, remember, she said, "I want to make it awkward for her," and we're like, "Well, you did." So
you never know if when Galus hugs you, she's going to stick a knife in your back. And there goes Ian. And Claire realizes she's locked in this room.
And this is where we bring the drums in. You can hear the drums.
Yeah, this finale was really written in three sections, which was the Claire Galus section in the first third. The middle is the voodoo, everything that from the voodoo ceremony.
Voodoo to Abandaway.
And to the cave.
Yeah.
And then
the third part.
The third part is the storm and the stuff on the ocean. It's like three vignettes strung together, but they all are on this story arc of the search for where they eventually end up.
Yeah. Well, they already know because they've seen the episode.
Yeah. I keep thinking spoilers.
Yeah.
But of course. Now, I just love the voodoo ceremony, and I'd been looking forward to doing this since reading the book. A lot of people were like, "Are you going to tackle this voodoo ceremony? It's pretty complicated. It's very, there's a lot of material there." But and at one point we considered, we have to pick, we have to be selective in what we can show. But from the beginning, I was like, we are gonna do some voodoo for sure. It's just so bizarre and colorful, and we found some incredible dancers.
Yeah.
I remember getting the video of the dancers just in their regular street clothes dancing when you guys were rehearsing them. And I just couldn't wait to see them in costume and doing it for real on the set.
We
Because,
rehearsed this quite a few times because we did it on stage quite a few times because you don't want to go out into the middle of a field
No.
and have people work things out there. So
and
so we wanted to incorporate the original dance into it, kind of bring Claire back into that moment, and something that we would call back to opening
Yeah.
up the portal.
And just like when she and Frank were watching it from a hiding place, she and Jamie are watching from their hiding place. This dance that's reminiscent of
Who?
Kragna Doom.
She was watching it with who? Oh, Frank? Yeah, we don't say Frank anymore.
Oh, he's
Frank's
dead.
been dead for a long time.
Oh, R.I.P. Frank. Now they're very surprised to see Willoughby here.
Yeah.
And we did a little something different than the book here. We loved the Willoughby character and the Margaret character so much, and they're kind of both these outsiders.
It's kind of lost souls.
And we built a little love story between them, and it's not very, you don't get to see a lot of them, but we felt that they were two people who could make this kind of instant connection because they're both very deep souls who recognize each other when they meet each other, and they end up together, which we just thought it made us all really happy to think that they ended up together. So it's something we did a little differently than the book, but I think it's very sweet.
And in the book, it's Willoughby that betrays Jamie. So,
Yeah.
we made him more a hero, I think, and less of a. I don't
Well,
know.
there was in the book there was a big plot with a murderer
The
in
Fiend.
Edinburgh, the fiend. We just didn't have room to do all of that in this season. We had made the decision early on to do Voyager in one season. We kept being asked, "Are you going to make 2 seasons out of it?" And maybe we could have, but then we would have risked maybe having, some episodes not as jam-packed as these are. Condensing it and making it, I feel like each one is its own thing that there's never a dull moment.
Well,
And
if we would have done 2 seasons out of Voyager, then the reunion would have been this episode.
yeah,
and
you wouldn't have wanted
you would-
to wait that long
Yeah.
for the reunion. No,
I think it would have been called Abandoned Ship.
Exactly.
I don't think anybody would have waited 13 episodes.
Right. So we put it all in. So we simplified. People always say, "What'd you cut?" I don't like to look at it as cutting. I look at it as simplifying and condensing, just streamlining some of these storylines to make them maybe even more dramatic.
This is a callback to
I love
the
this.
pilot,
Yeah.
or not the pilot, sorry, the premiere episode of this season.
Yeah.
It's episode 1. To
Yeah.
and
We
We
always planned to do this rabbit. When we saw the opener of the season, we're like, we got to put that rabbit in because we really wanted to give some validity to Margaret and show that she wasn't just a fake, a phony,
Yeah.
seer. And we knew that if we said it's like she has to have seen something that only Jamie and Claire knew,
Yeah.
so that they would believe, like, oh my God, she does have a gift, and that rabbit is something that even Claire doesn't know about. So this is one of my favorite moments.
and they hadn't even told anybody, other than episode 8 where Claire tells about the bird song, but she doesn't do it in a way that it's
Right.
not that story. So
Right. And then, of course, Brianna's, she's channeling Brianna when she says, "I love you."
Yeah.
I'm
I think this-
dreaming about you, Daddy, and I love you, Mommy.
I think this was one of the most complicated parts for me was the prophecy and getting the information out and having it make sense, because it is a very layered prophecy. It was actually more complex before we trimmed it
was.
down.
I think we simplified it a little. For a TV audience, it would have been hard to understand the complicated. Diana had an amazing one in the book, but it was very complicated. It would have been hard to explain and do in an hour-long episode, or the tidbits throughout the season. And we made it a little more dramatic in that Galus wants to go back and kill Brianna, rather than she wants to go back and Brianna is going to be the last of the Lovett line, or in that story, we weren't sure what Galus was going to do. And Claire had to stop her just because she was a zealot with a crazy idea going, to find my daughter who's supposed to be the next ruler. We said it'd be much cleaner and easier for a TV audience to understand if she's going back to kill her, because when you kill then the king will rise.
And this was also shot. This was shot over a couple nights, where you try to keep the energy going in one section, with the and build and build and build, and we had a little alcove cut out where we could do the scenes here, where Margaret was doing her readings, and where
Is this real sugar cane too?
no, it's not sugar cane at all.
What is it?
It's like banya grass or something.
It looks. It looks.
It plays very well for sugar cane.
Yeah, it looks
Yeah.
great. I just love this setting.
Yeah, they. It's like we're bringing it to a, crescendo, an apex of the scene.
We really wanted for Archie to get his in the end, to be, and he's just, Willoughby kills him to save Margaret, and he's just taken away by the crowd,
Yeah.
and kind of almost like Galus was taken away.
I love the guy puts his wig on. I love that.
Yeah.
It's just it was it wasn't, no one told him to do it. He just did it, and it just played so well, almost like he's
Yeah.
taking over his spirit. I kind of love that. So this jungle that you see is our art department and greens department grew this jungle on the bat lot.
Oh,
and when
man,
we
it
first
looks
arrived,
fantastic, yeah.
it was it wasn't very big. It wasn't overgrown or anything, and we decided to just kind of let it go, and it became this living, kind of breathing thing. It was great. So we wanted to tie in the kind of the Cragnadoon of it all is
Right.
That's why we put the stones up top to kind of create that this is the place, and the dancing was opening up the portal.
Yeah, basically Jamie is like, if anything happens, you have to follow her through the stones. Jamie and Claire, they live, they have a very unstable existence. At any point, they could be parted again. They could lose each other. They live in a dangerous time. They always are up to some adventure, and they're almost like constantly saying goodbye to each other,
Yeah.
not knowing if they'll be apart. This was very complicated to film.
Yes.
I don't know how you managed to get to all this action. There's so much going on here.
Well, it's also, once again, you're trying to condense, a large part of the book that when we're telling this story, and make it simple to just and tell it in a small portion of an overall script, and it's tough to do.
It's very complex here. We've got Ian.
Sam.
She's trying to save his life. She's trying to save Brianna.
That's why we had the two battles going on either side of the pool. Is I'm not a voiceover person, so that was added in post.
I think there was a concern people wouldn't understand what's the portal, because before at Cragnadoon it's the rock, it's the stones, and if you're in a cave, what would you run towards? Would you go through the wall or what? So we thought it was a clever solution to do this pool and say that is where she would have gone through, and she runs towards it, Galis runs towards it, and she's gonna, go through time.
I know, but for me, I actually think that her look there tells us.
Whoa.
And we actually used a stunt double body for that. And
Yeah,
I like how
that's
Jamie frees Hercules here.
And Hercules is like, I'm getting out
Let
of
me
here.
get out of here.
He's like, it's kind of like Ding Dong, the witch is dead. Everybody run. But Claire,
In this part where Katrina and I were talking about it, and she really felt like it would pull her, into, so she was drawn to it.
yeah,
Kind of like she was drawn to the stone, like she was
yeah.
wanted to put. So Jamie's
Well, she
like
hears
this-
the buzzing, and Jamie can't hear it, and it's almost like
so
in her head.
He
and
grabs her
it's-
and saves her, just probably what he wanted to do. And 213, episode 213, he wanted to. I love John was conscious enough to
Take the
grab these
jewels.
stones because that's what got him into the trouble in the first place.
Right.
And then Jamie would never leave that photo. So
No. Oh, I feel bad. I love Galis.
well, and that's the thing.
So hard to say goodbye.
Well, yeah, I don't know about goodbye, but
So long, farewell.
yeah, it was a long night.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. This is I love this scene because this is where we're going to see through Claire's flashback when she recalls the bones that we planted in episode 305, Freedom and Whiskey, which I wrote. I know people were like, what the heck is up with the bones? They don't seem to be, what was that all about? They seemed very random, especially to non-book readers. Book readers knew that that was actually Galis' skull that she was holding when she got this sort of sixth sense.
Well, and also
and now-
that scene in 305 dictated what we could do in 313.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't have them cut her head completely off
Right.
because Joe says someone tried to cut her head off
Right.
with a dull blade, and since that already aired,
Yeah.
that was already told, so we had to adjust how we killed her so it matched.
Right.
So that's why Galis' head doesn't
Yeah.
come all the way off.
Yeah. And I believe I had in the script, she tells Jamie, she's like, oh my God, these bones came to the hospital and it was Galis and I didn't know. But like, it's her realization. But we actually cut that out in the editing room because, Katrina's performance was strong enough that it was just more dramatic to have it in her head.
It was also too much flashback.
It was
there.
too much for her to be that cognizant and say it all in the moment. We just wanted her to get a shiver of,
Yeah.
oh my God, this happened before, and it came full circle. This could be the end of the show, and that's why I love this episode. It's like, you might think, oh, here comes the credits, and then, nope. We have a whole third of the show left to go, and we're back on the ocean, and now we take our breather, and book readers will recognize what we call the shaving scene, which we stole from another part of the book.
Yeah, this is. I remember talking to Diana, and she said this was one of her favorite, what she calls sex scenes, in the series, not
Yeah.
our series, in her series.
Yeah.
And I think one of the nice things about this moment is it's one of those intimate things that couples do, especially our couple, Jamie and Claire, is they have sex without having sex. In a way, it's all about the foreplay, and the foreplay is what kind of leads
Yeah,
up to.
it's Jamie talking and saying, here's all the things I'd like to do to you.
Yeah.
It's just as sexy as actually doing them, especially when it's Jamie. But this would have been in another episode. I forgot which one, but we were like, let's keep it for the finale because we want to have a literal calm before the storm here. And I think both of them are so great in this scene. They're so playful, and they've come through this really dramatic, awful experience, but now they're relaxing. It's over with.
Well, this is when we tone this particular scene. This is the first time you could breathe, It's
Yeah.
the first time since coming back, since the reunion, that they could be themselves.
Yeah.
In the reunion, there is a there's still a guardedness, certainly by Jamie, because he has the secrets that he's carrying.
Yeah.
And I think this is the one where everything's out on the table.
Yeah.
They know everything on the table, even Claire, is that they can just be themselves, and they can picture a future for themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's the nice moment. This moment is that we have a future together. We're going to be together, and we can take our time and be slow about it. I mean, little do they know what's coming, but you know.
The lighting is so pretty here in this scene. They both look good, and they just.
No one hearing was the important part, because we talked about that. Like, hey, they would have sex, and we're like, yeah, but privately, if it was a private moment, because normally Jamie and Claire are around 20 people all the time. They very rarely get to be alone.
Yeah, I like
So
how
originally, this is Captain Rain's quarters, and when he had a hammock on the other side of the room here, and I didn't want them to.
Right.
First off, trying to even get in a hammock is difficult, let alone doing it in a hammock. So I had him build a bed along the back, right near the windows, and it also plays into the next scene. So just to give him, you want to give Jamie and Claire a little more room. Jamie he's a man of action. He needs some room. He's also a big guy. So
he's the captain. Well, he's not the captain of the ship, but he's now, with Rain's gone, he is the leader.
Well, the first mate said, "Hey, look, I'll drive. I'll drive. You navigate." Basically, he said, "You be, if you take charge of the men, I will make sure we get where we're going. But you can have the captain's quarters." And certainly Jamie wasn't going to pass that up.
I just love seeing them laugh together when they're laughing and relaxed like this. I mean, again, another show that you work on may cut these kind of scenes because they're like, well, it's not essential to the story, it's not pushing the plot forward, but this is where our show lives, in these moments. This is the plot, the emotions between Claire and Jamie, and we have the luxury of playing these nice long scenes with them just connecting, and that's what people love seeing. That's what I love. So this
is a moment. We just watched kind of a war story. There was a battle going on, and you need to take these moments and slow it down a little bit, and give the characters and the audience a little moment to breathe, because we know what's coming. The character doesn't know what's coming, but we do. So we need everybody to take a deep breath.
And, we called this episode "The Eye of the Storm."
Not originally.
Not originally.
You called it Sea Change, and I
had named it Sea Change. That was a perfectly good name. It was a metaphor for how their life has changed after this voyage on the sea. But then we called it New World. And then we thought maybe that gave it away a little too much, because they obviously end up.
Well, also it was the title was tweeted out really early, and I think we didn't. We changed it.
Well, Eye of the Storm, I think, is a perfect metaphor, because obviously we're going to see the real storm in a moment. We're going to see them actually in the physical eye of the storm. But
Claire
to me,
Claire was in the eye of the storm with Galus.
Well, they're always in the eye of the storm, and they're in the eye of some storm. Their life is a storm, but these scenes right here, that's the eye of the storm, because when they're alone together and they have these intimate moments, that's what keeps them safe.
Well done, Tony.
It's the whole.
Well done.
It's a metaphor for the whole season, really, and the whole series.
That's why you're a writer. That's why you do this. That was smooth. That was
More
like
champagne.
That was like butter. That was like butter on hot bread. Oh, she's directing me to actually pour her more.
I need a little
champagne. She pointed to the bottle
Thank you
and
very
waved her
much,
glass
Mr.
in front
Roberts.
of me. I just want to point. I want all the fans to know how good I am to you.
Oh, you're the best.
Can you hear the bubbles?
God, that's good champagne.
That's the bubbles.
At least it's afternoon. It's not.
Yeah, I know. At
The
least
last one we did was morning, and it
Like-
was like, is it really too early for whiskey? What's going on?
So we deliberately here. It was a creative choice to do this really hard cut. We talked about it for a while, and we wanted it to be jarring, as just as jarring for the audience as it was for the characters to be thrown into this type of a storm. We shot this storm sequence
First, right?
Yeah, we did it when the weather was warm down there, and it was really fun to shoot. If you ask Katrina and Sam, they'll probably say the same thing. I said I had one of the biggest super soakers in the world. I had two massive
A
wind.
super soaker is a
Like-
machine that makes what wind and
Well,
water.
no, I mean, like kids super soakers. Well, mine was had a V8 power engine with two big fans, and it shoots water out with wind.
Yeah.
And between every take, I would have to soak them
Wow.
and
Yeah.
get them super wet before we could start. And they would just have to stand in the middle of the ship and just get pelted with wind and water. But I have a few photos of it that I'll post.
Yeah, it was crazy that you had to shoot this first. I remember looking at the schedule and going, "You're kidding me! This your first directing assignment, and you have to shoot the storm sequence, the
Well,
hardest thing to shoot first."
It's the first episode.
It's the first
I've
episode.
directed,
Matt
been
has,
directing for.
he has directed a lot of second unit stuff you wouldn't have even known that he did, but you've had a lot of experience with Outlander and done all of our title cards.
Yeah, so it's.
But still, to take on this was so well done, but it was, I can't imagine having to shoot this before the whole rest of the episode.
Yeah.
It was starting off with a bang, that's for sure.
Well, it's also tough for the actors too. You know, I mean, they have to they have to be at the end of the show before the beginning of the show, and that's tough. So you just, we work up to it. We talk about it a lot. We tone. We call them tone meetings, and I think one of the neat moments of this is when the big wave hits Sam. He said he was game to do it, and
he does a lot of his own stunts.
He does.
He does most of his own stunts, but this is a big one.
He does. He is. He's really a gamer when it comes to doing this. So.
This just looks so cool, and I mean, every time I watch it, I'm kind of amazed because we watch it in dailies and it's green screen, and so you just see some of this with the green around it, and then finally when all the final effects get in there, you're like, holy shit! Look at this. It's like my heart's in my throat. I can barely watch it because it really looks so real and.
It was a big sequence. It's a big sequence for.
I love that shot.
For
I just
yeah,
love that
me
shot
too.
when the mast comes down into the water. And it's
But to just have it be a part. Normally, a show would do this as the whole episode.
oh yeah,
And we just did it as a sequence. So a lot of debate on the next couple beats on how to, because our goal was ultimately we needed Claire and Jamie to be on the deck by themselves.
yeah.
And so we had a ship expert, a tall ship expert who sailed these things for
Yeah.
years, and we worked with him to figure out a way of what would they would do, and they would batten down the hatches, they would get below
Yeah.
because they lost. Once you lose the sail, once you lose the mast,
yeah.
you're kind of helpless.
I love learning about all this. How you in a storm you're supposed to sail into the wind.
Yeah, into the
and
wind.
when the mast breaks and they go sideways, that's what allows this wave. Now they're
Yeah.
parallel to the waves, and it's gonna it's going to capsize them.
So that was the moment when the initial wave hits. That was Sam. He took the whole thing.
Yeah.
And he loved every minute of it. Well, at least that's what he said. And this is where we kind of switch up. I don't know if anybody noticed this, but we took all the music out of that sequence. And the music starts here on purpose. And now we come back into the beginning of the episode.
Yeah. And if you notice, the music here is, if you recognize it, it's actually a version of the music from Faith, the episode. Because it's just surreal and sad, but kind of beautiful at the same time. And now we catch up to our opening. And Kat, we put them in the deep tank, right? And they really went in the water.
This is a deep tank. This is a mix.
They did. This is really them. This is not an effect.
No,
they are swimming. They are falling through the water.
No, that's doubles. The close-ups they were, but I don't want to claim something that. So
right.
The close-ups are obviously them in the deep tank.
Yeah.
But the wide shots are doubles.
Oh, I see. I see. Yeah.
So, but both Katrina and Sam had to go through scuba training, and what they would do is they would have a breathing apparatus on their mouth, and then they would give it up when they were ready, and then we'd start to roll. The takes were anywhere between 10 to 30 seconds, no more than that.
I love this. This is my favorite part, and this is something that this was an idea you had from the very beginning to do this shot where they come up. They come up and things seem to be calm because they are in the eye and they don't realize it, and they're like, well, maybe the worst of it's over. And they're looking around, but they're stranded in the middle of the ocean. But then as we pull up, you always describe this as we're going to pull up, up, up until we see the eye of the hurricane.
Because that's the story. If you don't see how they survive, then you wonder. I also thought that Jamie and Claire have both the best luck and the worst luck. They have so many bad things happen to them.
That's true. And
you almost want to give them the fact that the big wave hits them is such bad luck, but then it happened right on the when the eye was opening. That's what you believe. That's what could have saved them. Is this momentary, and it gives them a time to get onto this floating.
It's really magical.
Wood.
It's magical, but I love it. It's what our show does best, is show that these moments can exist in real life, that there's magical moments where you get through things, where your love can get you through things. And this transition, too, you plan from the beginning. I remember saying to go from the hurricane to the swirling of the tide pool.
Yeah.
This was really beautiful, the way you shot that.
This was one of the tougher days because South Africa, this beach faces the wrong way. Meaning the sun comes up
the other side.
in the obviously in the east, but we needed it to come up. We needed this to be dawn, and so this is dawn, West Coast or East Coast, United States, and there the beach faces the wrong way. So the sun was traveling the wrong direction all day long.
Right.
And so to kind of make it match, we had to plan for that. We had to plan to film the last shots, which technically are the first shots. So that makes perfect sense to me. I hope that made sense to everybody else.
I'm following you.
Yeah.
Even after 2 glasses of champagne, I'm following you.
Yeah, there you go. Also, this was another blocking issue that we had. It's like, well, I think, even when I've read the book, you imagine them kind of standing there talking to each other, and it's like, why would they be? They would be crawling, crusted with sand, and they just survived
Yeah,
they
I love
survived
how
a
dirty they
hurricane.
are.
You know, so
Yeah, exactly.
so
This must have been fun to shoot. They're just
sandiest
totally.
day. This is the sandiest day in
There's
Outlander
sand on her
history.
eyelashes. Look at that.
Yeah.
It's just great.
We spent the whole day on the beach. This was an entire day of filming, and I'm sure Katrina and Sam spent the next 2 days getting sand out of places that.
At this point, they think everyone that they love might be dead.
Yeah.
I mean, because the boat, if the ship was lost, that means Fergus,
Everybody.
Marcelly,
They just
young
don't know.
Ian, they're, you know,
I think we. So we had to say south, which that was actually north he pointed, so we had to make sure he pointed the right direction. So we're on the west coast of Africa right now.
oh, right, right. Now, in the book, this was the last line where he says, I'm James Fraser,
Yeah.
it's my wife. But that's because he had used like 3 aliases and
Yeah,
not been
he-
able to say his real name
Yeah, and
for
we
quite a
we
while.
obviously went away from that. Yeah.
We had simplified it. He doesn't use the aliases, and he was James Fraser on the journey. So we elected to just, we still have it in there. It's the second to last line. But we went for, we thought for us, for the show, this last line being that we're in America.
Well, that's where
carry
we're
us- to
that's
carry
where
us to
we're
the new
going.
sea-
Yeah,
yeah,
so
that's
that's
for the
why
new
it was so
season.
important.
Well, all of this time they've been searching for a home. I mean, Claire's been looking for a home ever since, she saw a vase in a window in the pilot. And Jamie, they've been back to Lollybrook, which isn't his anymore. And they're back together, but they didn't have a home. And now this is maybe a chance for a new home and a new start. And this will carry us into season 4.
That was a tough staging. It's like, what do you do when there's 2 people start crying? You gotta go. All right, let's go see if there's any more survivors. So, we did this with
This is a great
did this
shot.
with a drone, and we flew over the top of them, hugging.
Seeing them on
And
the
then
beach.
we open up to essentially America, and then we talked to Bear about creating some drums and pipes to kind of pipe you into the next season. So.
Yeah.
So
Right
that's
into America.
the new to say, hey, there's something coming. So
Welcome into the new world and
Yeah.
the new season, everyone. Thanks for being with us for this season, season 3. We had a great time. We hope you enjoyed it. We did.
yeah, thank you everyone, and please come back for season 4, where we got some new stories.
Some great new
The book
stories.
readers will know what some of them are, and we have some
And
surprises
some
for you.
surprises. Always some
So,
surprises.
There we go. Anyway, until next time.
All right. Thanks so much, everyone. We really appreciate all of you.